Welcome back, Brooklyn Nets fans. Oh my god, what a night. So, Mikal Bridges, who was rumored, quote unquote, to be traded, they were floating his name out to different teams. There was always that little rumor of, he'd be nice for the Knicks and reunite him with the Villanova guys, and I never thought it would come true. Never thought it was going to happen. It was like the chances of the Nets trading their star, quote unquote, to their crosstown rival and just that happening, like a player of that magnitude going to the Knicks, I thought would never happen. And on tonight, on June 25th, 2024, it happens. Mikal Bridges got traded to the New York Knicks. The Nets got a whole lot in return. I'm going to try and break everything down in a simplified manner in a minute. So they make the Knicks trade and give up Mikal Bridges. They get picks and Bojan Bogdanovic, who comes back to the Nets for the first time in 7 years since he left. And then, because you're thinking after that first trade, okay, we got picks for Mikal. That's cool. That's great. Because personally, I wanted him traded because I never thought Mikal as a number one was going to get you anywhere. So there was always, the chance you can pair him up with Donovan Mitchell, but then how far does that get you? So I never loved that idea in the first place. So for someone like me that wanted to rebuild, this is music to my ears. So anyway, after the Mikal Bridges trade happens, you're thinking, okay, but Houston still has all of our picks. And that sucks because we're going to suck next year and probably the year after. And Houston's going to, get rewarded for us having a bad record. But then about, 10, 15 minutes later, the Nets make a trade with Houston to get their own picks back, the Nets, for 2025 and 2026. So now the Nets can tank and get rewarded for it in 2025 and 26. And I do think Houston has another one of our picks. I could be wrong, but I'll go back and look in a second because there's just so much crap going on right now. But anyway, so here's everything I typed out. I hope this is right. I'll go on Twitter later and try and verify it. But so Mikal Bridges. So these are the guys we gave up and the assets we gave up. Gave up Mikal Bridges with 2 years left on his contract. Goes to the Knicks, obviously. We gave up the 2025 Suns first, the 2026 second round pick to the Knicks, I believe. A 2027 Suns first, and the most favorable pick of the Suns or Mavericks first round pick in 2029. I forget who that goes to now. I guess Houston. So, yes, go to Houston. And the Nets received, so this is what the Nets brought back in all these trades, the Knicks 2025 first, the Knicks 2027 first, unprotected, by the way, all unprotected, 2029 Knicks first, unprotected, 2031 Knicks first, which is 2031 just sounds crazy. But yeah, 2031 Knicks first, 2028 swap with the Knicks, which if the... if the Knicks have a higher pick, the Nets have a right to swap and get that pick, which is awesome. We saw how that benefited the Celtics back from the KG and Pierce trade. So then there's a 2025 Milwaukee pick that the Nets got from the Knicks. I don't know how the Knicks got that, but that's not really, too important right now. So a protected Milwaukee pick. I don't know how much it is protected, so I have to look into that. I saw some people post it wasn't protected. Some say it was. I'll have to find out. We'll find out about this in the, coming hours. The Nets also get back their own 2025 first, their own 2026 first, and Bojan Bogdanovic comes back to where it all started. So I've been telling you guys for the past, ever since I realized the Nets suck, which was probably sometime in mid-January, so we're talking 6 months now. I've been on the side of I just want to rebuild. I never thought that this Mikal Bridges nucleus was going to go anywhere. I like Mikal. He's a good guy. He shows up every damn game, which is nice. You don't see that very often these days. Guys that play all 82 games, and he's had his moments. Mikal's had probably 7, 8, 40+ point games. He's had some clutch shots. The one versus the Hawks. I'm trying to read tweets as they come in now. There's stuff about the Knicks saying they're still determined to keep OG Anunoby, but they might lose Isaiah Hartenstein, so we'll see what happens with them. So now we really have to pray on the Knicks' downfall, which is going to make it even more fun now for the next, 7 years, because it's all the way up until 2031, so we can pray on the Knicks' downfall for a long time and not feel bad about it. So anyway, as I was saying, I was never a big fan of like Mikal Bridges as one of your top two players and see where it gets you, because ultimately with the Celtics in your conference and teams like Philly that should get better this offseason, I just didn't see how that was going to get you over the top. I guess you never know. Sometimes injuries happen, and sometimes a conference that may look strong, which the East is not that strong anyway, but it's top heavy because of Boston. But it would have taken so much to break right for the Nets to make a run, even if they hypothetically had Mikal Bridges and Donovan Mitchell and some other, third star that was like not a superstar, obviously, but just some mid-level star. I don't know who that would be. But anyway, so there was only so much of a ceiling for a team like that. I always thought the best thing for this team to do was to get your picks back from Houston, which they checked that off, and then try to just trade Mikal Bridges and any other asset you have. Now, the funny part about this was when I thought about the Nets getting their picks back, I always thought it was going to be they would have to give Mikal Bridges to Houston to get their picks back. Ironically, they send Mikal Bridges elsewhere to the Knicks, and they were still able to get their picks back from Houston, which makes it even better. So this whole plan, like if the Nets just made the Mikal Bridges trade and left it alone, I wouldn't feel as good as I do right now, because ultimately we would not have reaped the benefits of sucking for the next few years. But now the Nets can suck in 2025 next year and the year after in 2026, where, by the way, 2025 is supposed to be a great draft. So the Nets can suck next year, which they probably will, to be honest, and they can get a top 5 pick, or, maybe a top 3. Could I say number 1? I don't know. Cooper Flagg. That'd be great. So you never know, but they put themselves in a great position here to rebuild this team, and it's going to take a bit of time, and I get that, I mean, I'm still pretty young for the most part, so it's okay. It's not like I'm 85 looking for a championship. So it may take 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but we've been here before, and I think there's just so many assets gained from this move. And I think people have posted how much the Nets have gotten from the Kevin Durant deal, and it is like a generational haul that they got for Kevin Durant. So I'm trying to go back to who posted it. It was Billy Reinhardt. He posted all the returns the Nets got from Kevin Durant, which of course they traded KD in February of 2023, halfway through the season. So this is just what they got for Kevin Durant and what they turned him into. So KD got them Cam Johnson, who's another guy that could be traded. We'll see. They broke up the twins, by the way, which that's a damn shame, but I'm just kidding. I really don't care. I thought that twin stuff was so corny between Mikal and Cam Johnson. Anyway, for KD, they got Cam Johnson, Noah Clowney, who I'm very high on, Knicks first, 2025, Phoenix first, 2025, Milwaukee first, protected, it says protected once again, 2027, Knicks first, 2027, Phoenix first, 2028, Knicks first, 2028, Suns first. Both of those were swaps in 2028. 2029, Knicks first, 2029, Phoenix first, 2031, Knicks first. All for Kevin Durant. That's what they turned KD into. And it always made sense to, in my opinion, it made more sense to trade Mikal Bridges last offseason when his value was really high, because remember, he came to the Nets halfway through the 2022-23 season, and Mikal Bridges was great. Like, people were like, whoa, is this guy like a top 20 player? But obviously, after how this year turned out, they tried to make Mikal a number 1 option. Did not go well. Mikal's play kind of dropped off this past year. His defense wasn't that great either, to be honest with you, especially for a former Defensive Player of the Year runner-up. So that was disappointing. So they put Mikal in a less than ideal role. So I'm not saying the guy sucks. He doesn't. Mikal would be a great number 3 on a good team, which now he goes to a good team. So if you're a Knicks fan watching this, you're going to like Mikal. I just never liked Mikal as a number 1. He's just not an alpha. Like, even his personality, like, you would see him after Knicks and Nets games go over to the Knicks bench and just be all buddy. Like, it just seemed like the guy was just kind of checked out the whole time. I don't know if he ever wanted to be in Brooklyn in the first place, but now he gets his wish. Apparently, according to Ian Begley, Mikal in a way kind of forced his way out. So Ian Begley, about a half hour ago, tweeted, Nets surely didn't want to trade Mikal Bridges to NYK, but Bridges' side was prepared to force the issue by telling teams he wanted to be with the Knicks, per SNY sources. Bridges' side made it clear to Brooklyn that he wanted to be with the the Knicks and reunite with Villanova teammates Brunson, Hart, and DiVincenzo. So it seems like, I know Mikal Bridges is not the type of player to ask for a trade or demand a trade to a certain place, but it seems like we were getting to that point. And Mikal Bridges had 2 years left on his contract, which of course is a favorable contract, which made him a more attractive asset. Like if Mikal was making $35-40 million per year, the Nets probably don't get this much for him, but the fact that Mikal is making an affordable number for the next 2 years and the Knicks are still looking to re-sign OG even after this trade, that just tells you how beneficial the Mikal Bridges contract is for the next 2 years. So point being is if Mikal just had a bad contract or even like an average contract, you're not getting this many picks. But the fact that his contract is favorable, which was one of the reasons the Nets wanted to trade KD to get Bridges back in 2022 or 23, that was one of the more appealing parts of Mikal Bridges. Not that he was in the midst of having a good year because the Suns had injuries and he stepped up and played well, and then of course went to Brooklyn and played really well, but one of the appealing parts to Mikal Bridges was the great contract, which now the Knicks get in their favor. So if the Knicks can get, which they did, if the Knicks get that contract and add some more pieces, it's going to look even better. So the Knicks are kind of like, yeah, we'll give up probably a lot more than we should picks-wise, but getting Mikal Bridges for the next 2 years on that contract can allow us to re-sign OG Anunoby possibly, or some other good free agent. So I see where the Knicks are coming from, but in my opinion, I'm trying to read this Adrian Wojnarowski tweet. So anyway, they're talking about KD possibly going to Houston now, which is why Houston got those Phoenix picks from us. So it's so confusing to follow along with, but now Woj is saying that Houston also was in a prime position for a younger player like Devin Booker. I mean, I don't know. Phoenix has said they want to keep their core together to try and win, but Houston's definitely going to give them an offer for KD or Booker and see if they can get it done, which I don't blame them because Houston seems like they're close to being a legit team. So anyway, there was a tweet saying the Nets got the same amount of unprotected first for Mikal Bridges as they did for Kevin Durant. So, I mean, that's crazy. Like, I definitely have been hard on Sean Marks the past probably 3 years since 2021 because, let's be honest, Sean Marks post-2021 has been awful. So I've been hard on the guy, but this is a good night. This is a good night for Sean Marks. We're not going to see results right away. We're not. The Nets still don't have a pick tomorrow in the draft or on Thursday. I think it's a 2-night draft now. It's going to take a couple years to really see, like, okay, did this benefit us? Did it work out? But once again, if the Nets suck next year and they get a high pick and they get their own pick back, which they did from Houston, I mean, just that and the potential of the Knicks collapsing in the future, which, let's be honest, I mean, not to prey on downfalls, but how often is a team that's their best player is a 6'2", 6'3" player in Jalen Brunson? Like, what's the longevity of that, right? I mean, Brunson, I think, is 27, 28. I'm not saying this is going to be like Isaiah Thomas with the Celtics type thing, but, like, I feel like players that are built like Brunson, they don't usually last as long, if, you know, I think that's fair to say, especially as a number one option. So we're going to see how it plays out, but even for the Nets, like, you can prey on the downfall of the Knicks, you can prey on your own downfall. Like, if the Nets win 18 games next year, I'm probably not going to care because that can get us the first overall pick. So we get to prey on Milwaukee's downfall next year. So it's going to be fun. I mean, you know, I did see that, I think it was Woj who said this. Yeah, so Woj said the Nets control their own picks as they go into full rebuild, especially importance in a talented 2025 draft. So when Woj says something, it's usually from GMs and from, like, the team itself. And sometimes, a lot of times, Shams is, like, coming from agents. So when Woj says that the Nets are going into full rebuild, that's important to me. Now, obviously, it's like the proof is out there. Like, obviously, they're trying to rebuild now. But for Woj to go out there and say it as well and kind of reaffirm that, it's great to see. And the Nets still have assets they can trade. They can trade Dorian Finney-Smith, who has, I think, 1 year left and a player option for the year after in 25-26, I believe that is. So they have him. They have Cam Johnson on the second year of a 4-year deal, I believe it is. I'll look it up real quickly. But Cam Johnson, who isn't like, it's not a great contract, but it's also not the worst, especially with the cap going up. I'm not a big Cam Johnson guy. He's another one who, kind of like Mikal, was a bit soft in my opinion. He's often injured. He had like 3 separate injuries last year. The year before that, when we got him, he played half the season in Phoenix. He was pretty much out the first 2 months of the year when he played with the Suns. So Cam Johnson has 3 years left after this for 23 mil, 21, and then 23 again. So it's not like the worst contract in the world, but it's not attractive either. It's definitely not a Mikal Bridges type contract, which Bridges, the exact number, his cap hit next year is 23.3 mil, and in 25-26, it's 24.9 million. So for a player like Mikal Bridges to have 2 cap hits over the next 2 years under 25 mil, it's a great contract. So that's why the Knicks probably did it. And to have the whole Villanova Knicks thing, whatever. So Dorian Finney-Smith, as I said, he has next year for $14.9 million and then a $15 million player option in 25-26. They can try to trade Dennis Schroeder, who's an expiring contract, for $13 million. They could always move Ben Simmons, which is interesting. So in this hypothetical world where Ben Simmons comes back next year and he'll now be 2 years off of back surgery, maybe, just maybe, Ben Simmons has a nice first half of the year for the Brooklyn Nets. I'm not saying he'll be Sixers Ben. I think those days are over, sadly. But let's say Ben comes in, averages 8 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists per game, like a little under a triple-double in every category. So let's say Ben comes back and does that. On an expiring contract, if he's playing that well and is making an impact, which when Ben has looked right for the Nets, which has not been often, but in the small sample size of when Ben looks right, he's definitely a positive player to have on your team. So to have a half-year commitment, a team may want a Ben Simmons. Will it get you a first-round pick? Maybe. I mean, it depends how desperate a team is. It's going to be a rental player. No one's going to trade for Ben Simmons and say, hey, let me give this guy a 5-year deal. No one's going to do that after what we've seen for the past 2.5, 3 years with this guy. So that's definitely another trade asset if he plays well the first half of next year and stays healthy. But for the Nets youth movement, which is where things get exciting, you have Dariq Whitehead, who was the late first-round pick last year. He was taken, I think, right before or right after Clowney. You also have Clowney. Both guys are 19 years old. Clowney showed a lot of promise the final month and a half of the year. And Dariq Whitehead played like 1 or 2 games, had another, I think it was a shin injury, and he's had injuries in college, so it's definitely concerning, but hopefully he's fine now. Day'Ron Sharpe's 22. I've seen his name floated out there for potential trades because, of course, the Nets want to re-sign Nick Claxton. And by the way, Nick Claxton got a lip tattoo or one of those tattoos inside your lip that says punk. I don't know why he did that, but now he's getting roasted for it. So, I mean, probably not the best choice. So Day'Ron could be traded, but Day'Ron has 1 year left on his deal for $3.9 million. Day'Ron's a great rebounder. He looked better in the first half of last year. He had that injury versus the Cavaliers overseas in that one game, and he didn't really look right after. But so I don't know. We'll see how he looks next year. He might get traded, though. So a team like Memphis apparently is interested. We'll see if that happens. Cam Thomas at 22 years old, one of the main building blocks, obviously, for this team. He is extension eligible, I believe. But I've also heard that it's smarter for the Nets to wait because apparently they can save money in the future that way. I don't know. Maybe it is best to just see how next year goes with Cam as your number one player and just see how it works out. Jalen Wilson's 23, second round, like a swingman type player, small forward. He was knocking down some threes last year. Decent defense. He's always around the ball. Pretty good rebounder for his size, so he's going to be like a useful role player for us, hopefully. Trendon Watford's 23. He's a free agent. I want Watford back. I freaking Instagram messaged Watford saying, come back to Brooklyn. Did not answer me, but I'm trying. So I'm doing my part here. But I do like Watford. Look, if we lose him, it's not the end of the world, but Watford's like a 6'7", 6'8" guy that can handle the ball, a switchable defender, can kind of shoot it. So I'm like, hey, let's just bring him back. Why not? I guess 25, still kind of young. Lonnie Walker is a free agent. He was on a minimum contract last year. So if they bring him back, cool. If not, I get it. But he's a nice like 6-man microwave scorer. So yeah, once again, there's a lot of ways the Nets can go about this, but this is a great start to a rebuild, and we have a lot answered now. Like, that's all we wanted as Nets fans over the past 6-7 months. Give us a direction, and we finally got it. It's nice. There's no guarantee it's going to work. Obviously, I'm not that naive. I get it. But if there's one thing that Sean Marks has remained consistent with, and obviously the man's had his misses, Sean Marks has had some bad moves in the past few years, trading all those picks for James Harden, which I get because it opened up a championship window, and they probably would have won a championship or maybe more without the injuries in the Bucks series and the freaking mandate. But it didn't break our way. Harden left in 13 months, but you gave up so many picks. You did get him back, at least the second half of the picks back from the Rockets, so that's nice. They were able to kind of salvage that in a way. But then you trade Harden for Ben Simmons, and obviously Ben Simmons has been like the most disappointing story in the NBA the past couple years, and he's making $40 million per year to just sit in his fancy clothes and look nice on the sidelines. So it's not what you want to see. And he's, Sean Marks has done some other things that really set this team back. Like moving on from Jeff Green in favor of like a Paul Millsap, or just bringing in some washed guys and having a really bad 2021 offseason when they really were trying to go all in to win. So he's had his misses, obviously. So the one thing, though, that Sean Marks has remained constant with is the guy is a good drafter. And we see it now with Noah Clowney, right? He drafted Claxton. Even drafted guys like Rodion Kurucs, who had his moments here for a couple years. I'm blanking on everybody else he drafted. Day'Ron Sharpe, Nick Claxton. He's never had a high pick, so it's hard to remember who he's drafted. So Day'Ron, Claxton, Cam Thomas, that looks like a great pick at number, 26th overall, 27th overall pick. Even Day'Ron was like the 29th pick, and at worst, he's going to be like a backup center who's a great rebounder. So, hey, it's a good find in the late first round. I'm trying to think who else he drafted now. I can't remember. But, yeah, even like finding Nick Claxton in the early second round back in that, I think it was 2019 draft, like that's a good pick to have. So, he's found guys, even like getting Joe Harris and Spencer Dinwiddie from the, I think it was D-League at the time, like finding those guys from the developmental league and making them like real NBA players and giving them a shot. Trading for young guys like D'Angelo Russell. Like he's good with young talent, but in terms of like the big moves, it hasn't gone too well. It seems like in that Harden for Simmons trade, it seemed like Daryl Morey really had him by the balls, which, they did that trade last minute, and the Nets, I don't want to say they got fleeced, but they did. I mean, Harden's not the same player he used to be, but like still, that's just, I don't know. Anyway, so I feel good about this. It's going to take a little bit of time, but at least next year we're going to have some young players to look forward to. There's going to be some money to spend now. I want to look up Bojan Bogdanovic's contract because I believe he's on a pretty good-sized deal. I'm trying to think who he signed it with because he's been all over the past few years. Okay, so he signed last offseason with the Pistons. Then he got traded, of course, in that Knicks-Pistons trade. So it was a 2-year, $39 million deal. So he's on an expiring contract for $19 million. So if you're the Nets, you can probably either trade him now as an expiring contract once again, and he's still a pretty useful player. He did hurt his ankle in that was it the Pacers series or the Sixers series? But he got hurt in the playoffs, Bogdanovic. So, but still, he was making some big shots for the Knicks when he was in the playoff games for a brief time. And he's had playoff experience with the Jazz, obviously. So I feel like a playoff team would, like to have a guy like a Bojan Bogdanovic, but his cap hit is $19 million for next year, and he's an expiring contract. He just turned 35 pretty recently. And I don't know what I was going to say. But anyway, so he could be not a valuable asset, but just like a nice bench guy to have. And maybe a team that needs a wing will go out and get Boyan next trade deadline. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, there's going to be a lot that happens over the next couple weeks with this team. As I said, the draft is Wednesday and Thursday. They don't have a pick, but they're going to have to go in the free agency and just sign some like lower tier guys. Kind of like they did when Marks first got here in like 2016, 2017, and try to find like, I don't know, like Trevor Booker and guys like that. I think Booker was a bit older, but guys that are just on small contracts that can come here and try to contribute. I mean, that seems like it's going to be the plan. If the Nets have the salary cap space, they can try and do what they did with the DeMarre Carroll trade back in like 2018, whenever that was, or 17. When they took Carroll from the Raptors, who had a pretty unfavorable contract, but they also got a pick attached with Carroll to come to Brooklyn just to eat that salary cap. So I don't know off the top of my head right now how much salary cap space the Nets have, but knowing that next year is not going to be a competing year for Brooklyn, they can go to a team that has a player on a bad contract and take that player back, but also take a pick back. So there's ways for the Nets to build up more assets, which is exciting. And as I mentioned earlier, they can trade Cam Johnson or Dorian Finney-Smith, or if Ben Simmons plays well the first half, they can do that. They can trade Bojan Bogdanovic. Like, they have options, and we'll see if they use them or not. I don't want Sean Marks to just sit on his hands now. Like, I like Dorian Finney-Smith, but there is no reason at all why he should be a Net next year. It makes no sense. The guy's 31 years old. He has a year left on his contract. Could be 2, depending on the player option. But that's a guy who should be on a competing team, not a team that's in a full rebuild like the Nets now are. So we'll see what happens, but just a crazy-ass night. I was in the middle of playing Rocket League, and I have the Shams and Woj notifications on my phone. So when their notifications pop up, I know it's like legit because I'm getting it from them. It's not like it's a, NBA Centel or like one of those like meme accounts or like the Ballsack Sports. It wasn't one of those. Like, I saw Mikal Bridges traded or whatever, and like when you see that, your heart drops because like you know what happens, or like you know what's gonna happen. But then to see it was the Knicks, it was like, holy crap. So just crazy. I mean, I think the Knicks overpaid, honestly. That's my honest reaction right now. That's why I waited towards the end to say that, to not piss off the Knicks fans. But maybe it works out. Like, once again, maybe for the Celtics, they have worse injury luck next year, which, aside from Porzingis, all their guys were healthy. Maybe next year somebody else gets injured. Jaylen Brown and Tatum are always healthy. Maybe one of them are not next year, and the Knicks can swoop in and take the East. It's not like too far-fetched. I'm still picking Boston right now, and maybe the Sixers get Paul George, and then they're interesting. But even Indiana, they're young and they're a fun team, and they just re-signed Siakam. But the Knicks are at least giving themselves a chance. And Mikal Bridges, as I said before, a really solid number 3 player on a good team. He can now go into that role as a Knick behind Brunson, probably behind Randall, who I still think would be their 2. Even DiVincenzo. I'm not going to say DiVincenzo's better than Bridges, but there will be nights when DiVincenzo's better than Bridges. But for Bridges now, you can be a spot-up shooter in the corner. You don't have to handle the ball as much. You can just do what you did in Phoenix at a high level. Obviously, Bridges was a top 5 player on that Suns team that went to the finals in 2021. They took a 2-0 lead. They probably should have won the finals that year. So he has experience in big games, big college games, and it's a good player to have. So I have nothing bad to say about him as a player. I just didn't he's a nice guy. I was going to say I don't like his personality, but that's wrong. Nice guy, but I just didn't like the way he carried himself sometimes. Just didn't have that alpha personality that this Nets team needed from him. He was supposed to be their best player last year. At times he was, but I think Cam Thomas kind of took that towards the end of the season. So, hey, good luck to Bridges with the Knicks. Solid player. You know what you're getting from him. Is he worth that many first-round picks? I would say no. But the Knicks, I guess, have confidence that they can be a really good team for the next, 4, 5, 6 years. And if that's what they believe, then this 2025, 2027, maybe even 2029 first round pick won't mean that much. But a lot can change quickly in the NBA. We've seen this before, right? Just 3 years ago, the Nets were on a road to win the championship, and now look where they are now. Like, it's crazy how things quickly change in this league. So maybe by 2027, the Knicks might be great, or they might be trash. I don't know. So we're going to see how it plays out. So overall, shout out to Sean Marks and to Joe Tsai, who I guess was part of this as well. And I've given both of those guys a lot of shit over the past couple of years because I'm a disgruntled Nets fan. Right? I mean, I had 3 Hall of Famers on my team, and then last year it went from that, and then 2 years later I was watching Mikal Bridges as a number 1 option. Like, it was tough. It was tough times out here. So at least now we get the picks back from Houston. We can suck next year and feel good about it, and we get a lot of Knicks picks in the first round. So hey, it could work out. Hopefully New York basketball teams are bad over the next few years, and the Nets can benefit from it. And as I said, we have that Milwaukee unprotected pick in 2025. There's always a chance Giannis leaves. I'm not going to say, because 2025 is next season, so Giannis is not going to leave this offseason. I don't see that. I mean, the NBA is crazy, but I don't see that happening. They're going to try and run it back with Dame and Doc Rivers one more time, and Giannis, obviously, and see how that goes. So I wish the Bucks pick was in 2026, but it is what it is. Maybe, they face injuries and the Bucks have a bad year. You never know. Like, even Memphis this past year, they were not supposed to be that bad, but sometimes your entire roster gets hurt, and that's what happened to the Grizzlies. So anyway, last season as a Nets fan was tough. They were directionless, and it felt like ownership didn't care. It felt like Sean Marks had lost all his mojo, which maybe he did, but maybe he got it back tonight. I don't know. This was a great move to not only make the Bridges trade and get the 4 first-round picks, really 5 if you include that Milwaukee pick, get the 5 first-round picks, and then have like the, the foresight to make that Rockets trade and get your own picks back as well. So everything Marks did tonight was great. Big fan of it. It just, it's a wait and see. We're going to see if this pays off or not, but they definitely put themselves in a spot to look like a great team by the time we get closer to 2030, which I know is it's a bit of a ways away, but even then, like, we may not have to wait that long. We've seen this before. Like, maybe Cam Thomas is that guy. I hope he is. I love Cam Thomas. I want that to work. Maybe Noah Clowney is that guy. Maybe Tariq Whitehead's somebody, right? So let's just say some of these young guys for Brooklyn pan out and they have a solid core. I mean, they have the assets now. If a Giannis or if Luka or someone like that becomes disgruntled over the next couple of years, they have the picks now to send to the Mavericks or send to the Bucks and say, yeah, we'll take Giannis, or yeah, we'll take Luka. And the Nets can be a front runner to get one of those guys. So, I mean, I think even, if they do like the full rebuild and the patient rebuild, kind of like the Thunder did, obviously it helps when you get SGA, but if they do something along those lines and are really patient, like, yeah, we may not see the Nets be great until 2028, 2029, 2030. But as I just said, there's always a chance, not even a chance, it's definitely bound to happen at some point, knowing how the NBA works now, that a superstar in his prime or entering his prime is going to become annoyed with his situation and ask out. And it could be Luka, it could be Giannis, it could be Cade Cunningham. I don't know. It could be anybody, right? It could be some young star. John Moran. I have no idea. Like, the Nets, all I'm saying is the Nets have picks now and assets to go out and get that next big guy, that next 25, 26-year-old superstar that ask out from his team. And obviously Brooklyn, for the most part, depends who you listen to. I know James Harden kind of spoke poorly on his way out about this organization and how it's ran, and even Kyrie to a degree. But Brooklyn, for the most part, is an attractive destination. It's a nice place to play, good place to live, a lot of publicity, a lot of endorsements. It's not the Knicks, but, like, hey, it's still New York. You're still getting in, like, that mass media. So, anyway, that's going to do it. It's 10 p.m. I'm definitely going to lose some sleep tomorrow for work, but I just got, like, really excited when that happened because, like, not only the Bridges trade to the Knicks, which is just crazy in itself, but to get our picks back the next couple years is just, I feel very relieved now. I no longer have to worry about the Rockets getting the first overall pick because of our stupid asses trading for James Harden 3 years ago. So it feels good. And hopefully by 2027, 28, the Nets are in a great spot. So we're going to see how it plays out. But once again, hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, leave in the comments. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about Sean Marks? Are you doing a 180 on Sean Marks like I'm doing right now? I mean, look, the offseason has to play itself out first. We'll see how the rest of it goes. But based on tonight's moves, Sean Marks is he's not on my shit list right now for the first time in a while. So that feels good. So let me know in the comments how you feel. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll talk to you guys next time.